Gentlemen, the name used to be Orakovsky. My people are from Odessa, Russia. We came in 1902 to the United States. So we're delighted to have you. And this morning, 3 of us will be giving the presentation. I'm going to start off today, and I'm going to explain to you about the Ritz-Carlton culture. You all have this plastic card. Everything we do at Ritz-Carlton is based on this culture piece. All of the business decisions, everything to do with revenue, with profit, with people, starts here. So I'm going to explain the components for about half an hour. My colleague, John Timmerman, is then going to come. He's the Vice President, Quality and Product Management. Have mistakes, rework, and flawed systems in your business. And then Shelley Perkins, the Regional Vice President, Human Resources International, will come to close and take your questions. Shelley has been on the opening team of the hotel in Moscow, and she's very knowledgeable about why we went into the Russian market, why we wanted a hotel in Moscow. She's living it daily, so I think we've given you a really balanced approach. My role within Ritz-Carlton, I have a dual role. We've changed about 1 or 2 words in this since we were founded in 1983. The back of the card are our service values. Now these are like the medicine of a religion. These are like the science of a religion, because we change it periodically to stay relevant with what the customer is asking. The last change was July 3rd of 2006, and I'm going to go through all the components separately. This culture is a golden thread that weaves our company together. We have a mandatory meeting every day around the world in the hotels 3 times a day, here from 9:05 a.m. till 9:20, where we engage in our culture. Every day we talk about this. Many people have what you see on the walls, which are just posters of this, but the employees don't live it, because they only talk about their culture once a quarter when the P&L, the numbers are going south, or they've had a horrible guest complaint. I want to start with our credo. The credo is our promise to our guests. This is what our guests should experience, whether they're in Moscow, they're in Hong Kong, or they're in Washington, D.C. And it's full of really powerful language. The Ritz-Carlton Hotel is a place where the genuine care and comfort of our guests is our highest mission. We're not confused. We know that if there's a guest problem, an operational problem, or a financial one, the guest problem comes first. And our leadership makes sure that we know that. They're not sending mixed messages. We pledge to provide the finest personal service and facilities for our guests, who will always enjoy a warm, relaxed, yet refined ambiance. And finally, the Ritz-Carlton experience enlivens the senses, instills well-being, and fulfills even the unexpressed wishes and needs of our guests. This is very, very powerful language all through this, okay? Always. We're not saying we're going to give you good service if we're feeling well, or Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. It's always, and it's consistent. We pledge. A pledge is very strong. It's a vow. It's a commitment. When you pledge something, you will do it. The most important thing about the credo is this, the unexpressed wishes of our guests. It is very easy to give great service when the guest asks for it. Let's say Mr. Lee checks into the hotel. He's frantic because he has a speech in an hour, and he's torn his jacket on the plane. If he calls me up and says, Diana, I'm frantic, do you have a seamstress here? Can you help me? And we go right up and sew his jacket, that's nice, but it was easy. He told me exactly what was necessary. What's much more exciting is this. When our ladies and gentlemen have their radar on and their antenna up, and they are just people on the planet. Most of them are very lovely, very courteous, but a few feel that with money you can be very rude and very abusive. So this is an equalizer, and it says to the customers, we are service professionals. We're proud to be service professionals, but we're not slaves, we're not servants. And the great news about the motto is this is not just for how we treat our customers, it's internal. It's how we treat each other as well. We are a very, very respectful company of our customers and each other, because we know that if we love our employees to death, they're going to turn around and love that customer. If an employer has taken care of their employees' emotional needs, that employee is not going to hang around the water cooler saying, nee, I don't like Ritz-Carlton, I don't like my manager, I hate my life. They're going to say, I love to work here, my mind is clear, I can give great service. You will find that many of our business practices are very simple. But you've heard the expression, the devil is in the details. How do we execute consistently all the time? We have something called the 3 steps of service. It's amazingly basic, but most companies don't get all 3 steps. What is it? A warm and sincere greeting. Use the guest's name. 40% of people on Earth are named after a relative or a religious person, or Moscow, or Tokyo, the 3 steps of service, and they know what that is. We are very familiar with everything I'm telling you because we're like the Catholic nuns. We repeat it over and over and over. It came later. The employee promise is a promise that the Ritz-Carlton makes to the employee on day 1 of employment. And it's saying at the Ritz-Carlton, the employees are the most important resource in our service commitment. By applying the principles of trust, honesty, respect, integrity, and commitment, we nurture and maximize talent to the benefit of each individual and the company. The Ritz-Carlton fosters a work environment where diversity is valued, quality of life is enhanced, individual aspirations are fulfilled, and the Ritz-Carlton mystique is strengthened. What's unusual about this is that it's normally employees making the promises to the company, not the other way around. This has created tremendous loyalty and engagement from our employees. And then we have on the other side of the card, we have the service values. And we do think of the service values like a science. Every few years, they're updated. And we had been hearing from our customers that we were becoming too stiff and formal. They loved our hotels, they loved our service. And the reason was, 10 years ago, the average age of the customer was 59. Today it's 47. This is how they used to look 10 years ago. This is how they look today. Nobody wants to go to a restaurant, at least not in the United States, where dinner takes 3 hours and the server has white gloves on, and gentlemen, you have to have the tie, and ladies, be totally glorious with sequins. The days are gone. We used to have 20 basics, and they used to be very prescriptive. We said things like, you have to say, my pleasure. You have to escort every guest. We've changed our approach. We're now saying to the ladies and gentlemen, all we want are happy guests. We don't care how you get there, as long as it's moral, ethical, and legal. We trust you, employees, to make the right call. What would this look like in the real world? Small role play. We're at the hotel. We're talking about the room service server. Room service server goes to the room, knock, knock, knock. A gentleman opens the door. The man is about 75, very nicely dressed, and he says to the server, "Good morning, young man. How are you today?" That's the clue to my employee that they can be a little less formal. I'm sorry, more formal. Okay, more conservative and more formal. Now he goes to the next room. "Good morning." And out comes a young man who's a music rocker with purple hair and ripped jeans, and says to the server, "Hey dude, how you doing?" You can relax it a bit. But again, you need to have your eyes open and your ears open. What is the customer saying to you? So with these, that we're calling the sixth diamond. It doesn't exist yet, but we want to create it. And these service values are divided up into 3 buckets. Functional, okay? Numbers 12, 11, and 10. It's about cleanliness, safety, and security. Nobody goes to a hotel, any hotel, and says, wow, I'm going to go to the hotel and the sheets are going to be clean and I'm not going to be attacked. This only becomes a problem if it's not there. You must do the basics extraordinarily well. We'll go back one? No? Okay. So once we've gone through the functional, okay, 12, 11, 10, there are emotional engagement values around involvement, learning and growing, teamwork and lateral service, getting problems resolved, and innovation. But where we really want to get to is the mystique. Another word for mystique is wow factor. And it's numbers 3, 2, and 1. Creating unique, memorable, and personal experiences, fulfilling expressed and unexpressed wishes and needs, and building lifetime guest relationships. And I'm going to go through each one of these separately. In the planning of the work that affects me, we want the participation of employees because that provides buy-in. I take pride in my professional appearance, language, and behavior. We're very strict. We can wear color, but the nails have got to be very short. They tell us where the bangs need to be cut. No hanging earrings, okay? No gold, and no strong perfume. Because your customers judge you in 7 seconds, and you're representing a business. Then 11, I protect the privacy and security of our guests, my fellow employees, the employees' confidential information and assets. There's a lot of people doing bad things today, getting into computers, taking documents that don't belong to them. You've got to keep your eyes open and protect this. And then I'm responsible for uncompromising levels of cleanliness and creating a safe and accident-free environment. We don't say that cleanliness is the job of housekeeping. It's everybody's job. If we spill something, we pick it up. But the reality is, customers are judging how clean your company is. And if it's dirty, they're then thinking to themselves, are the people inside the building competent? Nobody starts work at the Ritz-Carlton without first going to 2 days of orientation. And we covered this in 2 days. I gave it to you in half an hour. Also, there are questions in our annual employee survey that directly are driven from this. And we do a recertification with updates at least once a year. But remember, every day we're doing it in this 15-minute meeting that goes on in every hotel.
Later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Диана, вот эта фигурка льва, это символ вашей сети, имеет какое-то содержание?
And this mascot is a lion, I think.
Yes.
Does it have something to do with your chain or It has a particular meaning.
It does. It
имеет
basically, it
определенное значение,
came
по сути
from
дела.
two different historical things.
Этот логотип из двух исторических
Ritz-Carlton,
абсолютно
and
обязательно.
it's a non-negotiable.
И отменить его нельзя.
The culture is so embedded
Культура у нас настолько
we
внедрена,
would never
что
risk
мы
the brand.
никогда бы даже не рискнули слабым звеном на любом этапе.
Remember, even if you are
Не
not
забывайте, что
directly
даже
serving a
если вы
guest,
напрямую обслуживаете гостя,
you're serving
вы все равно
somebody that is.
обслуживаете кого-то, кто обслуживает гостя.
Можно спросить? Проходят ли работники probation период, и если, допустим, человек не прошел этот период, он возмещает затраты, потраченные на его тренинги, на обучение?
And do people go through a trial period?
Yes.
And if yes, and for some reason they don't make it, do they have to reimburse you for the investment that you had made
No.
during orientation and training?
No.
Нет.
You have 60 days.
У нас
Everybody's
60
on probation. And you also can say Ritz-Carlton's not for
неусловное
me.
нанятие на работу.
So, and that's very
И
standard
это весьма
in the
стандартно
hotel
для
world.
всей
But there's no
гостиничной
reimbursement.
индустрии.
Even if we
Но
say
они не
goodbye,
восполняют наши
you
затраты.
don't have to pay anything
А
back.
зарплата
Даже
в
если мы что-то
течение
и покупаем.
трейл период, она меньше, чем для обычных работников, прошедших этот
And during
период?
the trial period, do they draw entry-level salary or full
Full.
salary?
Full.
Нет, полную
Yeah.
зарплату получают.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We have a very rigorous
У
selection
нас
process,
очень жесткий фильтр стоит на этом.
which Shelley is going to
И
touch
Шелли об
upon.
этом расскажет
And
более
we do a
подробно.
pretty good
Но мы
job of
очень
selecting.
хорошо и четко выбираем людей.
I'm just going to find
Я
my
сейчас
colleague
пойду.
John, because I don't want to eat into
Would you humor
his...
us for one
Yes,
more question?
yes, I'll
The
be-
last one,
of course.
пожалуйста.
У меня он будет достаточно большой, поэтому, может быть, правильно переводить как в прелюдии, что называется, чтобы было понятно.
Вы знаете, да, что люди не совсем иногда понимают синхрон. Are you comfortable with simultaneous interpretation?
Sure.
Okay.
Ага. У меня просто как бы обращение за советом.
This is basically a request for advice.
Надеюсь, что это не будет
I
вопрос
hope
расценен как конкуренция,
That you do not
работают в
consider
разных
it a
сегментах.
competition, selling secrets or something like that.
Российское гостеприимство на сегодняшний момент переживает как бы свое столько становление.
Russian hospitality right now is really чего? Столько становления?
Становление, только развивается.
It's basically going through its embryonic state.
Yes.
И еще далеко не во всех отелях существуют какие-либо стандарты, и тем более такие вот продвинутые, как Ritz-Carlton.
And unified standards are not ubiquitous, and they are definitely not as evolved as yours.
Right.
И каково ваше мнение, стоит ли сразу же внедрять или разрабатывать такого уровня стандарты, которые позволяют людям, да, в зависимости от их позиции, думать и принимать решения самостоятельно, либо предварительно должен пройти этап, когда вот прописано так, что ты должен это. То есть сначала ты как бы провести через это, а потом учить думать.
Do you think it makes sense to empower people from the start? To tell them that you can actually make a decision and we would trust you and stand behind it? Or do you need to first have very rigorous framework and guidelines so that people have to follow them initially at least?
I think the following. I think you should
Мне
empower
кажется,
people,
Нужно, конечно,
but-
предоставлять какие-то полномочия
but
людям
you don't
и
just say,
свободу действий, но не
"Go
говорить
do
им,
it".
хорошо, идите и делайте.
You need
Поэтому
both. You
система,
need
очень
a
жесткая
very
система тоже нужна.
rigorous
И то, и
guidelines.
другое
you need to do
необходимо.
the
С одной
training,
стороны, нужно
but then you
предоставить
say,
систему, во-вторых,
I've given you
провести
the
четкую
training,
подготовку, после
you've
этого
got the
говорить, теперь
guidelines,
у вас
I trust you.
знания и навыки есть, теперь я вам доверяю.
Существует какая-то обратная связь от гостей, которая позволяет форматировать стандарты, которые они принимают? То есть,
And
как
is
часто они
there,
рассматриваются?
is there a feedback from your guests that allow you to revisit your standards, maybe update them?
oh, constantly.
Постоянно
Not
идет обратная
constantly.
связь.
Don't.
Не то, что постоянно.
Yearly, every 2 years.
Скажем так, каждые 2 года они меняются.
Thank you. The most important thing you can do
Самое
is
важное, что
listen to
можете
your
сделать,
customer,
это слушать
because they're giving you all
вашего
the information you need.
Потому что они дают вам всю необходимую информацию.
I'm just going to see if John
Теперь
is
я
there.
пойду,
If
найду
not, I
Джона,
could
если
talk
его
to you all
нет,
day,
я
so there's no
вернусь и могу
problem.
с вами беседовать хоть весь день. Это не проблема. Можете быть у меня.
Okay, great. And just as long as they know it's for themselves,
Но
not for
они
publication.
знают, что вы знаете,
Okay,
да, что
thank you.
публиковать нельзя, потому что информация патентованная.
All right, it's
Это
a
чисто для
pleasure
вас
to introduce my
использовать.
colleague,
Хорошо, теперь с
John
огромным...
Good morning.
Доброе утро.
My name is John Zimmerman. I'm the
Меня
Vice
зовут Джон
President
Цимберман, я вице-президент
of Quality and Program
по
Management.
качеству и планированию.
Talking at this pace, all right?
Я говорю нормально, с нормальной скоростью, да. Yes.
Yes. All right. Diana talked about the service
Даяна вам
values.
говорила о ценностях
There's a
обслуживания.
significant amount of research that went into the
Огромное
development of the service
исследование,
values.
которое необходимо до того, как мы выработаем наши ценности и принципы.
Using statistical
Используя
analysis,
статистический анализ,
methods of correlation and regression
корреляции
analysis,
и регрессии.
we've identified that our
Мы
customer
выявили тот
experience
факт, что пребывание
is
гостей
explained by 2/3 emotion
можно на две
and
трети
1/3 function.
объяснить эмоциональной приверженностью и на одну треть функциональностью.
And here's an illustration
Вот,
of what I'm
пожалуйста,
speaking about.
иллюстрация того, о чем я говорю.
The functional components,
Функциональный компонент
hotel
состоит
cleanliness,
из, например, чистоты,
giving you the correct room,
чистоты
on time,
гостиницы,
food delivered hot,
показа комнаты, доставки
when meant to be hot and on
еды,
time are all
например,
functional parts of the guest
других
experience.
функциональных моментов пребывания гостя в гостинице.
And they're important. However, the
Однако
emotions explain
эмоциональный аспект
the most significant part of the guest's overall experience
пребывания и
and then
качества
certainly their
пребывания гостя и,
purchase
конечно же,
patterns.
их решение о будущих покупках и будущем клиенте.
So we talked about the 12 service values.
Ну, теперь скажу немного об этом принципе.
One of the things that we do to align employees to service values is bring them together before they start work. And the Credo card that you have is reviewed during the first 2 days of the new employee hire process. And what makes that very significant, and Diana spoke to this, is that it's the leaders of the hotel that personally communicate the value system. By that I mean it develops financial projections. We try to identify how much inventory hotel rooms are going to be introduced into market, predict growth, but it differs to the point that we also identify psychographics, not just existing but future customers. A good example of that is in the mid-1990s, doing this long-range futuristic identification of customer needs. Through qualitative research, we saw that our customers were telling us that they wanted to have better access. They wanted to come and go as they pleased. And it could look like we needed to give them key card access or kiosks instead of a traditional front desk. But when we got underneath their spoken words, we found that they wanted their own Ritz-Carlton. And what you see today, that's part of that research, Ritz-Carlton residents. You can buy a Ritz-Carlton pyramid. What do we need to do in 2007 to support that long-range plan? And then what are the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats to achieve those success factors? Our SWOT process is again different than other companies. We involve every one of our employees in the SWOT process. And we do that by...
Excuse me, could you spell out SWOT once again?
It's, strengths.
Да. Плюсы или преимущества. Все знают, да, что такое SWOT? Да. Thank you.
Okay. Weakness, opportunities, and threats. So once we have our strategic direction, we involve every one of our employees, accountants, housekeepers, stewards, salespeople to give feedback on the strategy through the SWOT process. And we do that because it's our finding that about 90% of your competitive intelligence you find within inside the company. So every one of our employees is involved in the strategic planning process. The feedback from the individual employees gets fed up to corporate roll-up. Then we take the priorities and we translate them into metrics, performance targets. In addition to these 3 high-level priorities per hotel, each leader has 3 to 5 individual priorities for improvement. Food and beverage, but we also customize their experience. If you look at my Mystique profile, it would say a couple things. One of the things it would say is, I like light beer, and I like peanuts. Medical condition. And even though feather pillows certainly cost more than foam, if you're allergic to feather, we would put that in the database, and when you check in without having to ask, we would have a foam pillow there for you. Or a backboard, if that's a medical need. Or if you like Coca-Cola versus Pepsi, we would give you Coke versus Pepsi to customize the experience. We talked about 2/3 of the customer experience is determined by emotions. And therefore, for us to measure the experience, we have to be able to quantify emotions. Simon Cooper, our president, has a saying, when it comes to customers, feelings are facts. When it comes to customers, feelings, how people feel, are facts. We use a set of questions from the Gallup organization to be able to measure customer feelings. Questions like, Ritz-Carlton always treats me with respect. Ritz-Carlton delivers on its promises. Ritz-Carlton is a perfect hotel for people like me. And the ultimate question, I can't imagine a world without Ritz-Carlton. We kind of laughed at that question when we first heard it. We thought, who would answer that question? Can't imagine a world without Ritz-Carlton. But it's a question like that that discriminates someone that is emotionally connected to your product, your company, versus those that just like it. Or maybe being held hostage by contracts, agreements, or access. We talked about how our employees need to be able to treat a customer like they see themselves. There's some critical ingredients that are necessary in order to do that. Give you an example of what I mean. We've got a group A and a group B. Group A is reading 90 words per minute. This group of people, they read 90 words a minute. Group B, much faster. They're reading 225 words per minute. We give each group 1 week of training to improve their reading speed. Which group do you think improved the most, A or B? How do you say A in Russian?
A.
That's easy. And B?
A.
Which group do you think improved the most?
А или Б? A.
It's counterintuitive.
На самом деле это
Counterintuitive.
противоречит здравому смыслу.
Group A went from 90 words per minute to 135. Group B went from 225, and this is not a typo, this is correct, to over 2,000 words per minute. Why? Because Group B had more of a natural talent for reading than Group A. And for our service delivery, we need ladies every Monday and Friday. All our employees get together, every department, every hotel around the world. And this will happen when we open up Moscow. We're very proud of. The employees at the Ritz-Carlton Moscow will come together every Monday and Friday, and they will read a story about an employee that did something exceptional for a customer, to create that benchmark in the organization and to communicate that benchmark. We also have lightning strikes. It may or may not happen. Our managers have discretionary funds in their budget, and if they see an employee do something that's aligned and supports our values, I can give you $25, $50, $100, whatever I think is appropriate to say thank you. It may or may not happen. Discretionary way, immediate recognition and reward. Another thing that we do, which is very powerful, they're cards about this big. They say first class, which means great job. And anytime we see somebody do something great, we recognize it. A lot of activity in reinforcing positive behaviors in the organization. Sometimes companies spend a lot of time trying to measure and reprimand bad behaviors. Needs to be done. We spend more time recognizing positive behaviors in our company. I shared with you a survey that measures customers' emotions. We also have a survey that measures employee emotions. This is a survey also developed by the Gallup organization. The Gallup organization invested over $2 million in research and development to develop these questions, to validate and test them. When we ask an employee, are they satisfied, are they engaged, we look at 4 different dimensions. What do I get? Do I have the equipment that I need, the training required to do the job? What do I give? What's my contribution to the organization beyond the work that I do? Kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Do I belong? Have a best friend at work? We kind of laughed at that question too. One executive said, does that mean I need to go get a best friend? It's an important question because when you compare top performing employees versus contrast low performing, the thing that separates those two groups are these questions. Top performing employees feel like they have a best friend at work. How do you get a best friend? There's a book called First Break All the Rules, which is a summary of 30 years of employee research. And one of the authors, Kurt Hoffman of the book, would say this when someone asks, how do you get a best friend? He would say, how do you get a mouse? Like a little furry mouse?
Say it again. That I didn't catch.
Которая вас поселилась.
Getting a best friend at work is like catching a mouse.
Это то же самое, что поймать мышку маленькую, знаете, такие маленькие пушистые животные.
У вас
У вас уже
живет
лучше.
в номере.
Уже поймали.
One of us had a mouse in their room. Does that mean they have a friend at the hotel? То есть лучший друг у вас уже есть.
But what Kurt would say is, if you want to make a mouse,
Такой ответ.
or you want to make a friend, to make a mouse, you take some old rags, dirty old rags,
Завести такую.
you take some cheese, dried up cheese, crumpled up,
Какой-то старенький
put it
сыр,
together, you take it in the basement corner of your house,
найти
you
место
put it in the
в подвальчике
corner,
у себя, положить
and in a couple weeks you got a mouse.
в углу, и через пару недель у вас будет мышь.
So the question
То есть вопрос
is not just about having a best friend, but it's about the
просто
environments
лучшем друге, но
that you work in.
условиях, в которых вы работаете.
Another question,
Еще один вопрос.
receive recognition or praise, and that's asked within 7 days.
Ваши, так сказать, вашу работу оценивать
7 days is very important,
ваши услуги.
because when the researchers examined top performing employees, they found that those employees received recognition not within a month, not within 2 weeks, but within 1 week, within 7 days. Therefore, it's a question that we use to measure top performing employees.
Опять-таки, вот эти 7 дней были решающими. Этим отличаются хорошая работа.
Managing quality. We have a character we call Mr. Biv.
Вот это мистер Биг.
We don't have quality control departments in our hotels.
Специального отдела контроля за качеством.
We rely upon our employees
Полагаемся на
to
своих
measure quality.
сотрудников с тем, чтобы они сами это качество измерили.
And so it's our employees that report defects
Наши люди
in the
сами
delivery of products and services, along with that of our customers.
находят, они сообщают о дефектах, особенно с тем, кто есть.
And when you ask employees to report defects,
И когда
what can happen is they don't know what they're doing,
иногда бывает так, что
they're not
они
properly
не знают,
trained,
кто что делает,
they
кто
start
что
to indict other areas.
И они начинают обвинять
That happened to us.
друг друга. Такое у нас и произошло.
So we created this cartoon character called Mr.
Мы
Biz,
создали вот этот
where we ask our employees,
и сказали
to report
всем нашим сотрудникам,
where have you seen Mr. Biv? And Mr. Biv stands for mistakes,
сообщайте, когда вы видели вот этого господина. Он означает ошибку.
rework,
То есть он означает ошибку,
breakdowns, and for hotels, most of our breakdowns
поломки,
are communication breakdowns,
как правило,
inefficiency,
эти дефекты связаны
and
с
variation.
отношением, общением друг с другом.
The employees say, I saw Mr. Biv, it was a small one. Where I saw Mr. Biv, it was a
Наши
big one.
сотрудники говорят,
Where I've seen this Mr. Biv happen again and again and again.
то есть
It
не
takes
обвиняют
the
друг друга,
stigma,
а обвиняют
the finger pointing out of reporting
человечка.
defects.
Таким образом, мы можем
within a work
стыдно
system.
указывать на дефекты, которые они обнаружили, потому что они не обвиняют друг друга в этой системе.
And we use a 6-step improvement process
Мы
to
используем
resolve those Mr. Bivs.
процесс улучшения качества, который состоит из 6. Для качества, в принципе, она использует тот же подход.
Very similar.
Тот же самый рабочий подход.
В вашей компании.
What's the turnover rate in your company? If there's any turnover?
Turnover rate, let me give you history.
Позвольте историческую справку.
Before we use scientific tools to profile employees looking, measuring empathy, customer service, we were over 50%.
Over 55%.
Over 50%.
Текучесть была более 50%.
And it's been over a decade now.
Теперь, спустя 10 лет,
We maintain a 20% turnover.
она составляет 20%.
So we see a certain percent of turnover as healthy.
То есть определенный процент текучести необходим.
But the benchmarks for that,
Но для нас
hotel company hospitality turnover is anywhere from 100 to 150%. And for luxury hotels, it averages around 70%. And we're at 20%.
translate this. Иначе говоря, вообще по индустрии приняты другие стандарты. Допустим, если это обычная гостиница, то там такая текучесть будет 100-150%. Что касается отдела роскошных, так сказать, или отелей типа люкс, она может быть 70%. То есть вот мы себя с чем сравниваем.
А можно уточнить, наибольшая, естественно, текучесть и ротация кадров идет в звене низовом, так скажем, горничные.
Let me just specify, at which tier does the turnover mostly occur? Would you say it's at the room service, basically technical personnel, people who clean the rooms, etc.?
It's fairly well spread.
На
There's
самом деле
not one area
все
that's
это
greater,
распределено достаточно
significantly greater than
равномерно.
another.
У нас вряд ли есть какой-то ярус, откуда больше текучесть происходит, нежели в другом.
And retaining talented employees
И
is always going to be
сотрудников,
a core competency of us because
в принципе,
we don't
является
just
ключевой
compete against
ценностью,
other
потому что
hotel companies, we compete
конкурируем не
against
только
other
с другими
industries.
компаниями, мы вообще конкурируем с другими отраслями.
So, for example, we opened up
Например,
Ritz-Carlton,
мы открыли
Beijing
Ritz-Carlton
Financial
в
District.
Бейджине, в финансовом квартале.
We have financial companies that are coming after our employees because
In developing the
Насколько
project of the
больше
hotel in Moscow.
вы вовлечены в развитии
We were-
проекта по
We
Москве?
were very much involved.
Мы
We've
участвовали
opened
в
many
этом
hotels
проекте,
in
мы
the world
открыли
and always
много
start
гостиниц
working
по
with our
всему миру
partners
и
from the
всегда
beginning.
начинаем работать в партнерских отношениях на
Of the key
какой-то новой
parameters
местности.
is
Ключевые
the size of the
параметры
rooms.
– это размер каждого номера.
The hotel in Moscow will offer
Гостиница в
334
Москве
rooms,
345 номеров будет предлагать,
starting from 42
начиная
square
с
meters.
42 квадратных метров.
There will also be larger
Они
rooms
также
with
предлагают
56 square
крупные
meters,
номера 56 квадратных метров.
and the presidential suite will
И
measure
президентские
240
апартаменты
square.
или пятидесятники.
Then, and the boomers are the people
Это
sort of
люди,
late
которым
30s to
за
60s.
30 и до 60.
Then you've got the
Люди,
Xers,
то, что называется
32s.
поколение X,
and then
32,
Y.
скажем, в среднем,
So, as
и
long as
поколение
you're competent,
Y.
no
С другой
cutoff.
стороны, то есть, если у вас есть, who do you select a top manager for a new hotel?
Interesting, great question.
Отличный вопрос.
It's extremely competitive.
Это очень и очень
And everybody in the
конкурентная
hotel business
сфера,
knows everybody.
любой, потому что все в гостиничной индустрии друг друга знают.
So we
Поэтому
actually
мы
have brought in people from other
привлекли
industries.
людей из других отраслей.
But we use
Но
executive
мы
search
используем
firms
специальную систему поиска директоров и менеджеров.
and we try very hard for the top role,
мы
the general
очень
manager role.
Всегда
We want to
пытаемся
hire
на
from
самую
within
главную роль
because that
нанять
person
человека
comes
изнутри
with the
компании.
history
Почему?
and the
У этого
culture.
человека уже есть свои наработки и навыки.
Now we'll surround that top
Но мы
person
окружаем вот
with,
этого
with
главного
like director
человека,
of sales and
например,
marketing
директора
that
отдела
could come from
продаж и
somewhere else,
маркетинга,
or
который
director of
представляет
finance
регион,
from
или
somewhere else.
директор
But there has to
финансового
be a
отдела
balance
откуда-то еще.
from
Мы должны
within
достичь
and from the
баланса
exterior.
внешних и внутренних кадров.
Но если человек топ-менеджер привлекается в другой отрасли, из другой сети, какой проходит он обучение? Наверное, не ту ориентацию, которую имеет там горничная, да?
Если топ-менеджер все-таки привлекается из другой.
Да, или из другой отрасли даже, да, вот как они говорят.
If you have an exceptional case
Yes,
and you hire a top manager from the outside,
yes,
what kind of orientation and
great question.
embedding sort of
Onboarding,
marination of the values does he go through?
It is really rigorous.
Но на
If
самом
we
деле
bring
очень
someone
и
in, for
очень
anybody, whether you're
глубокий
from inside or outside,
процесс, вне
you
зависимости от
go
того,
to
человек
school
является внешним
here
или внутренним.
for 10
Или
days.
здесь
Either
вы
way.
получили специальное обучение в течение 10
But if you are from the
дней.
outside,
Если же
you
вы
go
человеком
to
внешним
a general
являетесь,
manager's
то вы
hotel for a
проходите
month.
через
to work with that
месячное
general
обучение,
manager before you start
работая
at your own
с
hotel.
другим генеральным менеджером до того, как вы начнете работать самостоятельно.
And there are lots of checklists.
in some other hotel that
Correct.
is exemplary, да,
We
в
will
каком-нибудь образцовом
We'll choose a
отеле. Мы
general manager
выбираем какого-то генерального менеджера, который может выступить в роли as a mentor.
that say, yeah,
В
and
роли
say it's
наставника.
close geographically.
Скажем, географически он близок к вам.
Exactly. And the culture's a
И
little
культура
similar.
похожа.
And they'll work together.
И они вместе работают очень много.
Mr. Lee, you'll have to let us know about the time.
Городской
The staffing is quite different than if
то
it's a resort.
нанятие на
And
работу
they're
отличается
golfing and they're
от
doing
системы
tennis and
подхода
all
к
of
этому
that.
вопросу,
So
если гостиница является курортной.
you still need a person,
Другим
though, a
словам,
human,
нужен
to check
человек,
the numbers that are
который
coming out.
проверит рекомендации и примет решение.
А процент загрузки годовой сколько?
And what is your annual occupancy percentage?
Globally,
По всему миру
it
или
runs about 72%.
72%?
Как у нас.
Same.
Thank you.
Да, у меня вопрос. А нельзя ли рассказать о структуре для персонала? То есть вот вы находитесь в квартире, так понимаю, где применяются налоги?
Так, давайте. Но это минимальная